Will you pray with me? Loving God, you care for us in many ways, in ways that have been described as a parent, a father or a mother, or an other. And so in this time of reflection, as we consider the ways that people in our lives have stepped up and stepped in, we ask for your blessing and your insight, your hope, and your peace. May only truth be spoken and only truth be heard. In Jesus' name, amen. It has been said that if we're not sure who the mother is, it is the one who cleans out the gunk in the sink. Now, I've been attending church since I was a little girl, and I don't remember many things that my ministers said when I was a kid. They were very caring people. They said many things, but I do remember my minister, Gordon Roberts, when I was about 8 years old, using this exact image in a Mother's Day service during his time with us, and it has always stuck with me. There's many beautiful things about motherhood, and there's many pretty unappealing things too. So I like to keep it real. And so we start with the gunk in the sink. And part of the reason why that's important is because it's about the mothering role is doing what needs to be doing without always knowing how, or knowing if we're ready, knowing if we're trained or prepared. We usually aren't. Or whether we even have the proper title of mother. Many of us need to find a way to step up and step in to someone's lives, to strengthen them, to embolden them, and to put them on the right path. And of course, the media or even the stories we tell ourselves might give us lots of stereotypical images and ideas about moms, and I'll admit it can be a complicated holiday, which is perhaps why we in the United Church call this day Christian Family Sunday, so it's not so mom-specific. Not everyone has a relationship with someone they would call mother. Not everyone has a smooth one, and many miss their mom, wish they'd been a mom, or are struggling with the many tasks, realities, and burdens of being a mom. So in today's verse, the image that stood out to me was the idea that Jesus is reminding us that we will not be left as orphans. And it's a powerful reminder of the idea that God as parent will be loving us all the way through our lives. And this is a way that Jesus explained how the Creator's love gives us a sense of family, the ongoing hope and knowledge that no matter where we find ourselves in this life, we will never be orphaned. We will never be alone. And so this story is one that accompanies and gives a promise of support and being held and being nurtured. And we know this act does not need to be restricted to the role of a mother, not at all. The notion of support and care and concern is one that should resonate for any of us in a community of faith, especially, carefully and warmly finding ways to come alongside the others around us, to join in, to mentor, and to wrap all generations in some kind of caring love. In other words, stepping in. And we can think of many images where we heard Jesus explain God's love. Whenever he did that, what did he want? He didn't want for us just to be polite and keep our distance, or just be kind and thoughtful and say generic things and send greeting cards. Real love, real Jesus love, the kind he wanted to express from his God, also involved a measure of sacrifice, which doesn't mean emptying ourselves out at every turn to serve and care for others. Of course, we want some energy left for ourselves, but loving others the way they need to be loved. The little ones, the different ones, the ones who need it. Having empathy, noticing what matters to the other, and giving up some of our comforts and getting out of our own comfort zone to do just that. And so as we consider in our context the relationship with mothers and others in our lives who teach us about love and sacrifice, and yes, even sometimes cleaning the gunk out of the sink, we think about those who have stepped in to build us up. It's always a good time when we have a holiday that we sometimes question, is it getting too commercial? Where did it even come from? Who invented this? It did come from a good place. It was a daughter named Anna who wanted to honor her mom Anne, Anne Reeves Jarvis was a peace activist who cared for soldiers on both sides of the US Civil War and eventually set up Mother's Day work clubs supporting sanitation and public health. Real important outreach. Her mom's wish was a service to commemorate all of humanity, and it was held, the first one was held at Andrews Methodist Episcopal Church in Grafton, West Virginia in 1908, and on that day, 500 white carnations were presented as a symbol of motherhood. And eventually, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed it as a holiday in 1914, saying that mothers are the greatest source of the nation's strength and inspiration. And it has some similarities to the British tradition of what they call Mothering Sunday, but that was also a day that was set aside originally for folks to visit their mother church. At its heart, no matter how it began, it wasn't meant to be commercial. It wasn't meant to be expensive, but rather a personal acknowledgement with letters and quiet appreciation of the mothers and others in our lives. And of course, some aspects of it might look a little different today. We always aim to honor the sacrifice and love and nurturing that mothers provide within families and communities. And when I think about the various ways that mothering and mentorship or nurturing can show up, and brought back to a moment when we would sit in our designated pew at church, because we don't often like to change pews, do we? I remember sitting to the right of my mom in the pew, and as my turn expired, it was the next sibling and the next and the next. The one of us that would get squirmy, there'd be a notepad pulled out of the purse and a piece of maybe dusty gum, and the gum and the drawing would keep us busy during church and focused to put in the time before Sunday school began. Well, during my commuting years, when I took my master's in Toronto before all this education we could do online, I did a lot of driving and then subway, or GO train and then subway to get to class in Toronto. And I was on the train with this dad who had a little girl who was maybe preschool, maybe just barely school age, squirming like crazy. And the dad was going bonkers. And he just kept saying, sit still, just sit. And he was getting really frustrated and embarrassed because he felt like she should be quiet. And I pulled back this little nugget, this purse item from my memory, and I dug into my backpack, and somehow I had some paper and coloring materials in my backpack, and I pulled it out, and I said, do you think you'd be okay if I sat with you for a minute? And this dad said, okay. He looked relieved. He didn't know what else to do. So just like my mom and my nanny before me, I started drawing whatever came to mind and asked the girl some questions. And lo and behold, her attention shifted and she settled down. And eventually the dad took notice and he thought, well, maybe I could do this too. So I just handed over my supplies and let him take the ride on his own the rest of the way with the pencil crayons and the papers and do his own drawings with this little girl. But just like so many times, these parents and many mothers in doctors' offices and church pews find the knack of those everyday tricks and those little warm feelings that we can pass on to someone else along the way to ease their own trip through this parenting journey. It's a way of honoring the generations of nurturing that mothers and others pass down, but also carefully assessing when attention is needed in the community and ever so gently stepping in. I had a really interesting conversation with someone in my life this week, and she's in my circle, and we sometimes catch up on all the big things, and we talked about our summer plans. And she mentioned this wedding coming up of her niece, and she said, oh, well, it's the niece that stayed with us for quite a while in high school, and I thought, how have I never heard this story? And I honestly hadn't. Well, it seems that they had this chapter in their lives where they brought an extra teenager into their home. She had an adopted niece in their family, and this niece had siblings in the household, and her family and her history included some medical differences. She had a fetal alcohol syndrome diagnosis. Her adoptive parents knew this was possible, and it was confirmed after the adoption. And over the years, the family grew up together, doing their best, sometimes peaceful, sometimes chaotic, finding ways to blend people into one household. Well, things got pretty challenging during high school. The years were volatile. The parents were at the end of their rope. This niece was in trouble in every aspect of her life: school, home, relationships, band, health. The aunt and uncle saw what was spinning out of control and spoke a kind of prayer into the universe. How can we help? So they stepped in. They talked to the sibling about what they could offer. They held a family meeting, and it was decided that this niece would move in with their family for this next chapter. And I only got a short summary, so I'm sure. Was it easy? No. Was it perfect? Probably never. Did they all try their best? They certainly did. And they made a new chapter to reset, providing strength and hope for this young woman in their family, and some respite for the others in the struggling family tree. So fast forward to today, this young girl has finished high school, is working, is in a steady relationship with someone who balances out her impulsive nature, and cares together for their new baby. And that wedding, now the aunt and uncle and cousins get to come around alongside and celebrate this milestone with her. They are such a big part of her story because of their part in stepping up and stepping in. And maybe you've seen some of these stories online, and some things come to me and make me think about the ways that we can care for the littles in our lives. This one I love is a story of parenting through braiding. When we think about the nurturing roles that kids need to thrive, it isn't exclusive to moms, although they usually have a lot of the duties. I came across a story of Philippe Morgues, a single father who created what he called the daddy-daughter hair factory. He learned to build his skills and confidence with parenting his own daughter, and then he taught himself to braid her hair so she would have more confidence at school. He decided to share this teaching with other dads, encouraging them to show up with patience and creativity and love. Because sometimes there isn't a mom available, and sometimes the mom that is available needs a hand. And either way, this simple act has created a bit of a movement. He is normalizing the idea of dads bonding in different ways with their kids, alongside other dads, with this unexpected but everyday activity, modeling the notion that today's parenthood can involve tender care for all kinds of parents. Philippe himself had found himself in a season of struggle with a decision to make. He could have turned inward or turned away from the responsibility of care that was sitting in front of him. A lot of people in his position do this. But he assessed the situation, summoned his strength, and turned his attention to nurturing and care, and shared it with his daughter, and then into a community effort, truly stepping up and stepping in. And of course, even our littles this morning talked about the people in those caring roles like daycare teachers and leaders. And you've told me too about those band teachers, coaches, maybe librarians, crossing guards, all kinds of adults who've been there for you when you were growing up, or there for your own kids, noticing the ones that needed a little extra time or building up. And isn't it such a gift for people to find a caring mentor that helps us build our confidence and our skill to feel seen and loved and gain growth with the gift of time? It's a feeling of sharing that loving face of God with a young person, filling them up and making them feel worthy. So we honor the mothers and others who offered that nurturing and attention that helps build us up, who intuitively know when to step up and when to step in. And I know this era we're living in is a tough and complicated season with volatility in the news, the environment, politics, war, financial stressors, and unrest in general. And there's plenty of research that shows us that the tasks of mothers become especially difficult in times of volatility. Lack of education, lower wages, challenges reaching healthcare, challenges accessing affordable childcare, emotional loads that are overwhelming. And the best way to ensure the safety and support of children and their well-being everywhere is always lift up girls, lift up women, mothers, and caregivers. Because education and knowledge and equality lift everyone up. When we realize this and we take action in our nurturing and the way we step in, we are taking steps to lift up whoever Jesus would have called the least of these, we are answering that call to share God's love in these acts, whether they be large or small. And we can also take time to nurturing ourselves so that we can go on to nurture each other, considering the kind of loving care that Spirit has put in place for us. Maybe that's, if this day or this week feels heavy, finding a simple activity, a book or a walk or a video chat to connect with someone we care about. Maybe it's turning off the social media and the TV reminders of a cheery holiday if they're not going to work for you. And maybe it's paying it forward, doing something nice to brighten someone else's day, taking a moment to write that letter, share the photo, make the call, and thank and honor that mothering force that was in your life. And maybe bring to mind those mothering moments and share them with a younger one in your life so they can experience the smell of that one perfect recipe wafting out of the oven, or maybe they will learn the name of that favorite bird or favorite book or favorite band, or plant that beloved flower, or feel steadied by that friendly face that drives in to pick them up from soccer practice, or share the laughter from that quirky phrase that could only be your very own mother walking right out of your mouth. You know it's happened. And know this, no matter how Mother's Day finds you, as one who misses your own mom and mothering figures, or as a mom who's loved and lost children of your own body or heart, or as one who has wounds from a mother that wasn't equipped, or as one who supports the moms in your life, as one who hopes and prays to be a mother, as one who finds this holiday hopeful or complicated, you are not alone. The mystery that some of us call God has a larger, wider, all-encompassing, warm, and caring love that goes beyond all understanding, that we can claim to experience that nurturing and mothering love we all crave. There is a spiritual writer that I love to follow, and her name is Anne Lamott, and she usually posts every time around this time of year, and the phrase she used lands pretty well if you're having a hard time with some of these memories. She says, "This is for you who may feel a kind of sheet metal loneliness on Sunday, who had an awful mother, or one who died, or wanted to be a mother and didn't get to have kids, or had kids who ended up breaking your heart." So important to honor all these feelings. And I would add, if you're in the trenches of caring for kids that grew inside you or grew in your heart, we can honor and remember this holiday for what it originally was meant to be. First, a call for peace and love from a community of faith that wanted to protect the least of us, the children. Hermann Hesse has been said to have quoted, "If we know what love is, it's because someone else loved us." So may we not only rest in, but also feel the strength of that love carrying us forward. That love that follows this huge, long line of love from mystery itself, through the stories of Jesus, the disciples, and through the many mothers and others who've taken a deep breath, ready or not, and stepped up and stepped in through it all to love us into being. May it be so.